What is up, everybody? This is Silverspook, and this is the Silverspook video about Utopia and sick philosophy, i.e., overpopulation, metaphysical Doomering, and the show Utopia, the Amazon original show starring John Cusack. So, yeah, you might not have heard of this show, possibly. I didn't hear about it till this week, so it came out in 2020, but Amazon did release this a couple years ago. Interestingly, it actually is Utopia is a show that's actually very much like it almost could have been set. It almost is seems like it could have been written like during. It seems like it was written during the pandemic, but it actually is based on a UK show that came out like over a decade ago or about a decade ago, and then it was it's a US remake of that British show. Centers a major crux of the show is a pandemic, like a massive. I would say worse than COVID-19, where it's like what a lot of people thought COVID-19 might be, and not to say that it still couldn't be, but it was basically apocalyptic sort of a pandemic, and so Utopia is as you can see in the image there. This is one of the cover photos for the promotional materials. Utopia is a show that deals with dystopias, and Utopia. As is often remarked in science fiction circles, in speculative fiction circles, Utopia is a kind of dystopia. There are dystopias, but then there are utopian dystopias. I know that's like very oxymoronic and very confusing, but basically, the concept is that in a utopia. Let me just get that up here, just so I don't not the show. I already looked that up. Don't re-Google that. So in a utopia, an imagined place or state of things in which everything is perfect. Misplaced faith in political utopias has led to ruin. It's usually used in a pejorative sense of people who, have some kind of overly self-confident, megalomaniacal attempts to build the perfect world, the ultimate problem-free, just paradise on earth kind of thing. Utopia typically describes an imaginary community or society that possesses highly desirable or nearly perfect qualities for its members. It was coined by Sir Thomas More in his 1516 book Utopia, describing a fictional island society in the New World. However, it may also denote an intentional community. So it's also wrapped up inherently in colonialism, as you may have already noticed. What's up there, Big Teal? Utopia, the concept of a utopia has been around for several hundred years, obviously. The keywords is like the utopia, or Greek for not place. Okay, sorry, I was getting that wrong. There's multiple Greek origins. I'm mixing them up. There's like euphoria and a dysphoria. Speaking of bodily dysphoria, which is experienced by some of our fellow people that are being treated as not, especially nowadays. So, but euphoria and dysphoria, and utopia and dystopia, right, are two. One of them is like a perfect state, and dystopia is a very, very undesirable, terrible state of being, right? You follow me, you probably know what a dystopia is, since I make dystopian science fiction like Neofeud, etc. Cyberpunk is a subgenre of dystopia. I spent a lot of time talking about this topic in this channel, so I try not to overstress this point. But dystopia is an imagined state or society in which there is a great suffering or injustice, typically one that is totalitarian or post-apocalyptic. um, Whenever I see the word totalitarian and then a post-apocalyptic, you probably know my thoughts on these things. But environmental disaster is the backdrop to this modern dystopia. Oh, you mean like the Ohio rail disaster where a million gallons of vinyl chloride is causing hydrochloric stomach acid to murder all the fish and the birds? Is that something like that? And then all branches of the U.S. Western superpower are covering it up. Oh, anyways, that's like, dystopia is it's relative, obviously. So having environmental disasters, those have always been happening, and even more so if you're not in a wealthy first world country, obviously, and if you're not in a wealthy first world a suburb, and you're in the, let's say, the ghetto or the internal colonies, right? So it's always relative. That's what whenever I see these words, as a native Hawaiian under U.S. occupation, I always have to kind of, the other non-stormtrooper part of my brain is like laughing from the outside of this, and the other part is like I know what they mean though. So totalitarian or post-apocalyptic realities, right, are dystopian, blah blah. Okay, you get that point. Here are some pictures of dystopias. So when Trump is in power, it's dystopian. Basically, when Republicans are in charge, then it's dystopian. When Biden oversees environmental disasters, infinite war, a capitalist collapse, etc., then it is a bright shining future. That's dystopia. It's actually interesting when you look at what the Western psyche is, which is what happens when you look into their search engines and have deep conversations with their artificial intelligence. Their broken artificial intelligence, I should say. But dystopia is, obviously The Last of Us is a dystopia with more zombie characteristics, right? Dystopian young adult fiction is like one of the most popular types. This is interesting. Utopia is when, so this is the Utopia versus dystopia. So Utopia is when white and green and waterfall. Dystopia is when brown and orange and black and neon and nighttime. That's the difference. Utopia is when Lothlorien. Dystopia is when Brazilian favela. That's the difference. No, I just it is interesting to look at these things. Anyways, let's go back to the main point. So, but I want to talk. There's lots going on in this show. Holly and I are nearly done with it. It's like one season that was canceled, but and Utopia, it's well scripted and acted, and everything is very entertaining. It's worth. It's definitely it's very tightly plotted. It's got, let me get the actual show, the one from 2020. There's actually, because I said there's multiple, there are multiple Utopias. One of them was 2013 to 14, and I believe that was released in the UK. And then there's the US version, right? Utopia, where a group of young adults, better stop that before this thing gets me in trouble. A group of young adults who meet online get a hold of a cult underground graphic novel, which not only pins them as the target of a shadowy deep state organization, but also burdens them with the dangerous task of saving the world. So, and it stars, this is the boy from Umbrella Academy. Actually, it has a lot of similarities with Umbrella Academy. Has a lot of the Papa character and the shadowy organization in Stranger Things. Papa, who is the horrible, abusive scientist with a weird, he weirdly, turns his lab experiment children into his family. Calls them all his children. So that kind of character and kind of relationship is, and that kind of organization is very similar in Utopia. And this kid is actually from the young Hispanic kid is actually from Umbrella Academy as well, which is also a dystopian. They're always trying to stop the apocalypse. It's a very apocalypse centered show as well. As John Cusack, is probably the most well known name in that kid. I recognize that kid. Rainn Wilson's also in that. That's the other big name in that. But anyways, so a group of young adults who meet online get a hold of a cult underground graphic novel, which not only pins them as the target of a shadowy deep state organization, but also burdens them with the dangerous task of saving the world. So of course, everybody's always saving the world. When are we not saving the world? It's always time to save the world, especially if it's a comic book. So what's up, Strin? Also, so sick. So the characters are. We can get some screenshots of it. Utopia 2020. Jessica Hyde is one of the main characters. And so in Utopia, basically these characters. What starts out? Let's just go to the beginning. So the convention. So in the beginning, there's a bunch of comic book nerds, which is basically all these people, right? And they are going to a big comic book convention to discover. It has a very meta, in-group nerdy opening where it starts with people who are looking for this comic book utopia. And there has been this whole series of them called Dystopia, right? And then there's like Dystopia 1, Dystopia 2, Dystopia 3, etc., etc., etc. And there's an unknown, they don't know who the author is. The author is some mysterious figure, shadowy figure. Let me see if I can find that. Episode 1. And they're at the comic conference, trying to discover. They're trying to get a hold of this elusive comic book, right? Utopia, and a family has moved into a house and they discover this comic book in their house, right? It's just some random young couple, and they decide, oh, maybe it's worth some money, so they say they're gonna auction off this comic book. They're gonna like invite people into their hotel room at the conference. One at a time, and everyone's gonna have an opportunity to place a bid on this comic book, and whoever bids the most basically will get their utopia. So the first episode is like dealing with like just what is it, and like this, a lot of it is like going to the comic convention, and there's like all the different types of comic nerds. You have your booth girls, you have your cosplayer with the all the dudes with their metal t-shirts and. Just tons and tons of all their paraphernalia, and all kind of people in all their, butterfly wings. Some people look like they're cosplaying characters from Steven Universe. I forget the name of it. It was like Weird Con or something. It was like, it was not a Marvel Cinematic Universe sort of con, but Stan Lee wasn't there. Well, I think he was already dead, but. It was not that kind of con. It was a con for, like, I would say more darker eldritch, somewhere between cryptid dating sim fans and Cthulhu universe aficionados. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, doesn't really matter. The point is that like they get to the comic book convention. I won't give you that whole plot, but they kind of like fight. This one group of friends who know each other only online through this archaic Web 1.0 subweb 1.0 message board slash. It almost looks like they're doing it on Windows 95. It looks like command prompt, right? It's like command prompt. 1990s style IRC chat, but even more stripped down than IRC. And it's super secret. They only know each other by their code names, which they type to each other. They type to each other on this message board. They're all kind of, because Dystopia is a book, right? Dystopia is in the show Utopia is a comic book that let me see if I can get like a short review so I can give you some of that. So it's a Alice in Pandemic Land. That's a good phrase for it. Although I don't really want to show the New York Times because they're turf garbage rag. You tell me what may be the most unlucky show of the year. A cult classic remake echoes the real world of an unfortunate way. So the first thing you see when you begin streaming Utopia on Amazon Prime, actual related. The show is a work of fiction not based on actual related or current events. How strange, you might wonder. What could that mean? So the thing is, because, as I said, right, it's Utopia is a show that, this is one of the, a very creepy character from the show. The show is dealing with a pandemic, right, as I said, and so it's about a conspiracy unfolding through a pandemic. How it gets started, the conspiracy to start it, right? The conspiracy around vaccines involved in it, and shadowy. So it's actually like, it's really like, I was thinking like, if you wanted like anti-vaxxer conspiracy fuel, this is like perfect, you know. And if you want like, you know, anti-mask, you know, right-wing government overreach, liberal corporate conspiracy to destroy Western civilization. This is perfect, you know what I'm saying? It's like the main character, John Cusack's character in Utopia is like basically extremely thinly veiled Bill Gates. You know what I'm saying? He's a glasses wearing computer company, former computer company owning looking nerd, or he looks like Bill Gates. He gets really deeply invested into biology, biotech, medicine, all different sorts of it, right? Is a ultra rich billionaire philanthropist, right? So he's really interested in doing good in specifically involving medicine, vaccines, plagues, right? Talks about overpopulation. Bill Gates has. And he also is, there's lots of other similar. I mean, it's just like, if I didn't know any better, I was like, this is just Bill Gates, which is also like, it's also like Deus Ex, and I was thinking Giant Mnemonic and Deus Ex, which are also, those are just another. I'm 3 tangents deep into the spirals of dystopian hell, but you know, I have to bring this up. Giant Mnemonic is a show that also centers Giant Mnemonic, the movie based on the book by William Gibson, which is cyberpunk, as I said, which is a branch of dystopian science fiction, centers around a giant shadowy conspiratorial corporation that is producing the that is actually part of an entity that's producing this nerve attenuation syndrome that causes the breakdown and basically erosion of people's entire nervous structure, their nerves, so that their bodies flail around like mannequins in a hurricane, which is what happens to the girl in that next to Keanu Reeves, and the corporation is trafficking in the very expensive cure to this nerve attenuation syndrome. And you know, so it involves. My point is, it involves a conspiracy of mass propagation of pandemic. This one is more cyber pandemic, and also corporations trafficking cure. So it's all about you know, medicine and huge corporate entities wrecking everything with it. It's also apocalyptic in that sense. And then and Deus Ex is a video game that I obviously. There's lots of references to Deus Ex inside of Neofeud, etc. But Deus Ex is a game. And the original one is called Deus Ex: The Conspiracy. I want to actually bring that up. It is important because this is deep in. I would say this is deep in the Western psyche. It's literally called Deus Ex: The Conspiracy, and Deus Ex: The Conspiracy involves shadowy, deep state. I mean, like undisclosed clandestine entities, organizations, and departments in the formal government, right, that are doing what? They are conspiring, ostensibly, to propagate a horrible plague. In the case of Deus Ex, it's called the Grey Death. It is a nanotechnologically produced, and it uses basically microscopic machines to that act like a plague when they enter the body. So it's a nanotechnological plague manufactured by a character named Bob Page. It's like a cross between Larry Page and Bill Gates, and who runs a tech/bio company. He manufactures a plague in China, obviously, because we have to manufacture our new Cold War 2.0 at all times, which is the same as the old one. But anyways, so he manufactures a horrible plague through this entity called VersaLife, and your job, that's one part of the story, that is killing people around the world. It's going to kill billions of people, and he also manufactures the cure for it, called ambrosia. And so and these are in. I'm not saying that the creators of Utopia. I'm not saying that the creators of Utopia, or who wrote Utopia the show. Let me just get that right. So Dennis Kelly was a utopian. Dennis Kelly. He's not a utopian, but Dennis Kelly is a British thriller drama television series creator. Broadcast on Channel 4 from 2013 to 2014. The show is written by Dennis Kelly, starring Fiona O'Shaughnessy, etc. So let's see if I can get Dennis Kelly. British writer and producer. He worked on theater, television, and film. So he's and so I'm not saying that Dennis Kelly stole his ideas from Johnny Mnemonic. Where's my Johnny? I gotta have my Johnny, you know what I'm saying? I need my 3 megabytes of hot RAM jammed into my head that contains within it the entire code for the human genome, the Library of Congress, the Library of Alexandria, and the cure to nerve attenuation syndrome. You know what I'm saying? I gotta have my Johnny. That's a joke. I don't need Keanu Reeves, even though he is also native Hawaiian. Johnny Mnemonic is. I'm not saying that the Utopia is a ripoff of Johnny Mnemonic, Deus Ex, and there's lots of other. There's lots and lots of these. Every zombie movie. I shouldn't say everyone. Many of them by Resident Evil, right, is the game, right? Came out around the same time as within 5 years of this, and actually came out same years as Deus. Resident Evil, the first game, came out, I believe, the same year as Johnny Mnemonic, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'm not saying that like they're all the same thing, but it doesn't really matter which one was first. But because I want to get into the mindset, the mind space, the cyber, not the cyberspace, but in this case it's cyberspace. I want to get into the mind set, right, that generates sick philosophy. I'm not saying that the show is sick philosophy, but I'm saying that like the way of thinking, right, and whether I don't, part of it is that when William Gibson, right, who wrote Johnny Mnemonic, right, was coming up with some kind of horrible corporation's plague that's going to wipe out tons of people and then sell them back the cure, so that number one, you do get depopulation, right? And this depopulation, right, or overpopulation, right? This is overpopulation. In the last 5 decades, Earth has experienced an extreme population boom. Phenomenon is known as overpopulation, where the condition is which this is. I should say this is a way of thinking. Right? I'm not saying this is just facts. This is the way that people like Bill Gates has openly said things related to this, right? There's a thing called the Great Reset, and you don't have to look it up, but there's a lot, but it's not. It's some people think it's very conspiratorial, is right, which is that like, oh, there's this shadowy organization or organizations. It's Bill Gates. It's Alex Jones used to talk about the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission. The thing is, these are not really shadowy organizations, but that's part of the problem. I think, in fact, is that there is the enshadowfication. There's the force, the willful X-filization. Mulder and Scully always looking for government conspiracies, chased around by the Men in Black. Men in Black itself, right? Dark, shadowy men coming from the deep government / corporations. Some shadowy organizations coming to get you in the night and do lab experiments, and also they're talking to aliens, right? And they're having anal sex with, or the aliens are having anal sex with them, and then they do that to you, and it's all wrapped up in a Western patriarchal, colonial, capitalist, homophobic culture that can't deal with the fact that dudes sometimes like having sex with other dudes, and so then they come up with it. So part of the enshadowfication is to deal with all the, I would argue, the sick philosophy of Western philosophy is to deal with all of the suppressed and psychic and real and material and environmental damage that they inflict upon themselves and their surroundings. But anyways, but the overpopulation is one of these conspiracies, right? That's not really it's not necessarily a conspiracy, but it is a mindset and a way of thinking that there's a problem with the world. The problem is there's too many humans on this world. The humans currently existing on Earth outstrip our future resource availability and Earth's carrying capacity. So the solution, right? Not Soylent Green. I mean, we got tons of these when it comes to Soylent Green. I think that was overpopulation was one of them. 60s, 70s, it was really it was a hot topic actually. All the consumption contributes to ecological degradation, increased conflicts, high risk of large-scale disasters like pandemics. So a pandemic is already wrapped up in that. Pandemic, food shortage, supply chain failures, right? Eggs being $20 is because there's too many of you. So some of you should just starve to death, right? Anybody? I just had this thought because I was this is a topic that's up this week in the Western world. Where was that one? Right? You remember that headline? Right? You remember this headline? Shoot, where was it? The one about the eggs. Or I'm sorry, yeah, this one. To save money, maybe you should skip breakfast. This is Wall Street Journal this week. So this is the one of the dystopian clown world rags of note. The voice of the Western world, Wall Street Journal, one of them, says that because you don't have enough money, just starve to death. I mean, they're not literally saying that, but they're suggesting that eating is a luxury and you should forego those eggs, the $15 eggs, right? The avian problems plus the climate change that is causing together, and the supply chain shortages, crashing, destroyed, unmaintained rail, and mass quitting of truck drivers, comorbid with AI that were supposed to replace those said truck drivers, that is broken and it kills as many children as Elon's Teslas. So because of all those things, which are all problems generated by capitalism, Western culture, all the overconsumption that is, the G7 country and their leadership's fault, really. Because of that, everyone and all the poorest people who are going to disproportionately suffer this, you should just not eat any food. And a part of this is preparing the population for what is already happening, but it will increasingly happen, which is collapse of many systems simultaneously, environmental systems, economic systems, etc. If the present trajectory continues, and it should be noted that this is not necessarily universal as I said, the goal of the Western capitalist colonizer imperial, this unhealed descendants of the Roman trauma, as I like to say, is to trap you inside of the U.S. and the EU and its vassal states. Europe is in there. Europe is like as speaking of comic books, as Rorschach says to his fellow inmates in The Watchmen by Alan Moore. Speaking of comics, you think, right? That I'm trapped in here. You think that I'm trapped in here with you, right? But the truth is, you're trapped in here with me, right? It's like the Europeans and the people in the U.S. They think that they're being protected from the outside, right? There's evil enemies outside of America that are gonna get you, and you think that the walls around America, the borders of America, right? Militarized, razor wire, AR-15 wielding drone policed borders, right? Killer robot dogs policed borders. You think that those borders are to stop the invaders, the barbarians coming to get you, but the reality is, the U.S. and its economic, its military ties, its NATO, they're not there to protect you from something outside the walls. They're there to trap you inside with the United States and with the West, with the capitalist former colonizer, neo-colonizer world. And that's why this is what's happening in Europe. People are starving. The reality is 70 million people suffered malnutrition in 2020 in the United States. Many of them died from it. This is not a dystopia. It's not really. It's here now. The dystopia was already here. It's just rapidly accelerating through the population, like floor by floor demolition. So first the poorest and the most non-white and a black trans poor person is going to be the most impacted. But now it's just slowly going through and wiping out swaths of the society one by one, piece by piece, and then preparing each level to be wiped out, as appropriate. And so Wall Street Journal is targeting just the average mass of Americans, right? The UK, the Telegraph, and the BBC also put an article similar to this that are like, eating can cause unhappiness. Too much eating, right? Having too much toast and too much meat causes dissatisfaction in life. So literally, manufacturing consent for your own starvation. Because the supply chains, under the current trajectory, these things are not going to get any better. So the rich are building 9-story underground nuclear bomb-proof bunkers with indoor sauna, spa, racquetball courts, swimming pools, and theaters, and fake beaches. I was just looking at one earlier. And everyone else can suffer dystopia, right? And so anyway, before I went off on this, I kind of went off on a little sidetrack in there, but the point is that the dystopia, the dystopia spoken of in Utopia, this is not really a science fictional future scenario. It's actually it's a 500-year-old scenario. That, right? The dystopia began when ships full of plague-bearing, unhinged psychopathic murderers, right, committed genocide and annihilated millions of people all around the world, right? They touched down in Turtle Island, Africa, Asia, etc. That was the dystopia. And then now the dystopia is over, or the dystopia is much more of a, let's say, a heterotopia. That's a fancy word one of my friends came up with. But it's just it's no longer that dystopic in some parts of the world that have thrown that off, right? Now the United States and Europe get to have a really, well, I should say, the more privileged subsections of the United States and Europe that have not experienced dystopia, right? That got to sit in cushy offices with, high 5 or 6 figure salaries, consuming comic books, right, about saving the world, Now they get to consume nothing, or they get to consume ground up, raccoon and rabbit. I saw like a white man pharmacist from Oklahoma or Wisconsin, I can't remember, right? I looked at his bio, saying, I can't afford chicken or eggs. I am looking very closely at rabbit stew and raccoon recipes because I cannot afford any meat. I can't afford any kind of protein at this current rate. Also, I have all kind of health problems, right? So now people who used to be like spared the dystopia, right? It's just the dystopia is like a storm system. It is moving away from one area code into some other area codes that were much more posh, as the British would say, or were much more the upscale, formerly upscale. Now they're downscale, and the penthouses are all moving underground. So, anyway, so that's one way to think about it. But I lost my I went on too many dovetails. I gotta pluck the feathers of this dove. John Cusack's character would be very upset at me because he's a vegan. He's a vegan billionaire psychopath, murdering 6 billion people. So, anyways, he creates a meat called Simpro that's about simple protein, which is I'm not saying that you shouldn't eat some kind of non-animal based products. It's not necessarily that's bad, but that's like one of the things that he does. It's, as I said, it's like the perfect thing if you're like if you are I shouldn't say a right winger. I should say if you're one of the letter R right wingers as opposed to the letter D right wingers, because there's two right wing parties in America. And so for the R right wing parties, this is going to be very good because it's going to be very very much to your liking, I would say. But if you're an actual like, I see a lot of people are like dropping the word leftist, or like, well, I'm not going to bother talking about leftism anymore because I feel like I failed, and it's like, it don't feel too bad, you just you live in the West, so it's a garbage scape clown show. But if you the people who are left will also look at him and go like, this guy is terrible as well. But he is very democratic. He's very like, not democratic in this small d. He's like he's very much like a Democratic Party of the United States kind of character. He's like, as I said, he's like in pharma. He's all about, he's biking everywhere. He's all about looking at his carbon footprint, even though he flies in jets and he's got giant industry and he's a capitalist, right? But he's concerned with his carbon footprint, never eating any meat, right? Right? His favorite phrase is, what is it? What have you done today to earn your place in this crowded world? That's what he says to all of his children, right? Imagine vegan Papa from Stranger Things. Papa from Stranger Things? The psychopathic scientist that is like torturing children in an underground lab in Hawkins, Indiana, right? That creates 11, or that keeps 11 prisoner and calls her his daughter, right? Imagine vegan Papa. That's John Cusack. So anyways, that's not John Cusack. That's John Cusack's character, Mr. Christie, CEO of what is he a CEO of Utopia? I'm really bad at remember these. Kevin Christie is one of the main characters, and he is the influential entrepreneur and top of the economic food chain, trying to make the world a better place. Some of his work focused on efforts to preserve human life, thus preserving the future. The character is original to remake, not having a counterpart in the British series. He is the CEO of a multinational corporation producing new food sources. He often asks members of his family, what have you done to earn your place in this crowded world? As I said, his character is someone who believes that the ends justify the means and that he is the one who must take up responsibility. People follow him in a cult of personality. As part of his work, he has developed a controversial meat substitute. Simpro, short for simple protein. So he's it's one of those. You have to stop climate change. You have to stop environmental destruction. We have to stop cruel treatment of animals. We have to stop pandemic and et cetera, et cetera. We have to stop all of these problems. And so the solution is we have to like kill a lot of people. You just got to kill a whole lot of people. And certain people are worthy of surviving. And other people, those who earn their place by doing a lot of good, by being very vegan today, or I don't know, biking to work today, those people are good. And he asked every one of his children, right, what have you done today? One of them is like, I studied hard and hit the books and I completed all my homework and I got straight A's on my report card. And he's like, that's right. We need people that are working hard on the problems of the future. You, what did you do? I biked to school and I worked on a cure for nerve attenuation syndrome. That's right. We need other people working on all of the horrible viruses that are threatening human life. What did you do? And everyone, you have to contribute something. You have to, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't contribute things, right? But he's like, he gets to choose, right? Billionaire, capitalist, mass murderer. He chooses whether you deserve to survive the thinning of the human population. Right? And so that's why I talk about sick philosophy. Right? And so that's that. Before I went off about the overpopulation, is that right? It's so overpopulation is a philosophy is guiding principles like core tenets that it's basically thinking about thinking, right? I would argue there's never really been any thinking in the Western world that hasn't been completely contorted, broken, distorted, and full of mass violence and mass disinformation. But I'm not gonna digress there yet. But his thinking comes from in a long line. It comes from a long heritage of this Western capitalist, Eurocentric, Western-centric concept of overpopulation that is around the time when it was recognized, right? It was recognized. Overabundance is a phenomenon in which species population becomes larger than the carrying capacity of its environment. Guns, Germs, and Steel. There's so many books written about this. All the big think New York Times bestseller list is full of this kind of the intellectual thinking man's books, and it's always a man usually. thinking white rich man that hangs out in London and LA and New York. Their lead theory has always been there's too many people. Once they figured out that the consumption of resources, right, ecology, overpopulation, overpopulation causes the entire population of the species in question to collapse and become weaker. So they also talk about bunny rabbits expand and then they suddenly they procreate so quick, like they're breeding like bunnies, right? They have so many they have so much coitus and they pop out so many spawn of themselves so rapidly that the population expands. They consume all of the grass or the plant foliage, whatever the food source. And when they run out of food source, then the population rapidly collapses, right? So and this was kind of being discovered in the it was being discussed more in the 50s, 60s era, right? Post World War II era, and so the overpopulation narrative, and of course there is a real problem that was also discovered. It was like the Silent Spring, which was a Fable for Tomorrow, a true story using composite of examples drawn from real communities. Oh, I'm sorry, this is not the right one. Is this the right one? Rachel Carson's Star Spring. Why did Silent Spring? The chemical that was banned was part of the effects of Rachel Carson. Her book Silent Spring exposed the poisonous effects of the pesticide and spurred sweeping changes in the 1970s. So, but actually, Dune also has some aspects of this where the ecology of the planet, right? Global warming, climate change, right? These were not necessarily well recognized and known. Technically, there were scientists who discovered that ecological, like overconsumption of resources, carbon emissions, right, industrial pollution, and all of these combined impacts could eventually potentially destroy ecosystems, right, rivers, lakes, streams, plants, and animals generally, which would mean the end of human life. Could right mean the end of human life, along with so many other species, right? So in that time in which overpopulation, so the climate change, global warming narrative, right, which was really becoming a problem in the especially post World War II era, where there were people who were looking at the ozone layer, they were looking at the total carbon emissions, and they were increasing rapidly and faster, right, as more of the world was coming into higher living standards, and then so more resources was being consumed, more fossil fuel was being burned, right, to support all these lifestyles. And so the narrative of the Western world and the capitalist world, certainly, sorry, I'm trying to find the climate change 1960s. See. In the United States, the evidence for the warming effect of carbon dioxide became increasingly convincing. Scientists also pointed out that the human activities generated atmospheric aerosols, pollution that could have cooling effects as well. Scientific opinion increasingly favored warming viewpoint by the 1990s. As a result, improving the fidelity of computer models confirmed the Milankovitch theory of the ice ages. Anyway, so discovering the cycles of the Earth warming and cooling, and how the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, right, creates like an insulating blanket around the planet, where the light, the light from the radiation from the sun bounces off the Earth, reflects off the increasingly thick carbon dioxide rich atmosphere, which increases the total temperature of the Earth. And so this is right. Those theories were being further studied, further solidified, further recognized, right? Of course, there were the United States. It's very important to remember it's the United States and it's the West. The U.S. as the world's largest Euro settler colony. Settler, capitalist, colonial, genocide, and infinite war-based Euro. The United States is basically Europe on steroids. That's one way to think about it. So the U.S. and its capitalist corporations, embroiled in the military-industrial complex and fossil fuel, like ExxonMobil, etc., conspired. They did conspire. Well, it's not really a conspiracy. They just decided we're going to stop the actual science of climate change from being recognized, because if people believe that overconsumption of fossil fuel and rapid investigation of green technology is what we should do, because it is increasing, it is causing problems for the environment, it is causing rapid ecological changes that are devastating, and it's causing what we're having now, right? And so they spend billions of dollars to pay scientists to manipulate public opinion and to cast doubt, right, upon whether climate change was real. It's still controversial, was on the tip of the tongue of every CNN anchor. Every part of the Western world is complicit in this, all the way down to the news, so-called journalists like the New York Times writers, every single one of them. All the scientists were like tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy nuts who wanted to really talk about these problems. In Dystopia, in Utopia, Rainn Wilson's character is the scientist, right? He's a pandemiologist doctor who specializes in a specific kind of Peruvian bat flu, right? Who he discovered, and he's tracking it, and it is something that's being used to nefarious ends by a huge corporation for just horrific, depopulation purposes. It is, right? A modified version of a bat flu made by an American capitalist to thin the population because of his philosophy, right, of overpopulation is the solution to all of our problems. So Rainn Wilson's character is the gaslit scientist. His wife is telling him, no, you sound like a crazy person. Don't do that. Nobody's gonna believe you. Let's just like accept the fame and the notoriety and the money of the clout that you've garnered with just discovering the things that you have discovered, and just stop chasing this secret truth that maybe the corporation is trying to. So there is a gaslighting, which is always happening in the Western world, where scientists that actually want to tell the truth. I have a whole I have a video about this in Ghostbusters. I think it was from last year. I have a video specifically about the scientists just in a culture and a society and a civilization, Western civilization, which is premised upon mass violence and mass disinformation. People who tell the truth will forever be outcasts and outliers and tinfoil hat wearing Rainn Wilson like scientists who are told that they're just nuts when they actually discover some actual truth that is inconvenient or needs to be heard. I'm not saying that you should go vote for Al Gore, by the way, because he made a show called Inconvenient Truth. Where the fuck is it? But I did. There's a video about that I did. It was called. I'm sure Holly already has it, and I'm just very slow and bad at this process. Wait, did I make a video about this, or am I just imagining things? Oh, yeah, Holly's got it. Ghostbusters. There it is. Perhaps I have contracted, Argentinian worm flu, and it has given me brain fog. No, there it is. Surviving the End, Ghostbusters, and it's basically about like, it's a similar thing where like the end is happening, but people are not listening to the scientists, because a society governed by mass disinformation and mass violence and mass wealth escalation to a minority that are propagating the mass disinformation necessitates scientists constantly having to fight against the currents of their own broken quote-unquote civilizations. So anyways, so the point is that, though, similarly Rainn Wilson's character is in that position, right, where he is trying to tell people this something terrible is going to happen, they're lying to you, et cetera, et cetera. And so where was I coming from? Yeah, and so, but what I was going through with the history of climate change is that there were always these problems. They became known, right? And there were some movies. There was there's like Soylent Green. There was Planet. A lot of the dystopian science fiction. You think of the 60s and 70s. Planet of the Apes. Obviously nuclear war was one of the apocalyptic radioactive dystopian fiction. Let's say post-apocalyptic and dystopian. They kind of overlap, right? And so a lot of these are based on the problems that could happen if these climate change continued, it wasn't dealt with, if ecological destruction wasn't dealt with, if it's destruction of warfare was continued and it wasn't dealt with, especially with nuclear weapons, poverty, hunger, all these things. Now the thing is that if there was, right now, if it is a problem that too many resources are being consumed, and it's human beings are doing a lot of the consuming, right? If you accept just that basic premise and you don't dig it much deeper than that, right? I mean, what I want to argue at another level is that, as I often bring up, if you begin with incorrect information, if you begin with not thorough investigation into the problem, right? Which you have to be. The West is terminally caught up in this, right? If you're honest about this, if you are a scientist in the West, you already know this. You should know this. That's why climate scientists are literally being killed by the police, right? Environmental scientists, all kind of scientists are literally being murdered on a regular basis. Environmental lawyers like Stephen Donziger won a case against, Chevron, right? Committing one of the greatest environmental catastrophes of all time in Ecuador against indigenous people. Usually it's the colonized people, right, taking the brunt of it. He won a lawsuit and then he was put in prison. He was put in prison for winning a lawsuit, right? So you know this. If you actually care about anything at any scale, you maybe you don't admit it to yourself, or you have an inkling of this. You know this, that everything that you think is an accurate analysis of the problem. It's not. It's misinformation, so that you come to the incorrect solutions to problems. Now, obviously, if the human population was killed off, that could reduce the total carbon. I mean, it's horrific, but that could reduce the total carbon emissions. That is what the capitalist, imperialist ruling classes of the West want to have happen. They want the population of the Earth to drop. It's not a conspiracy. They come out and say this kind of stuff at Davos. They say it they say it openly nowadays. They say it in the New York Times. They say it in the Wall Street Journal. They're just saying what they're saying with this article is, they're quietly ratcheting it up. They're boiling they're quietly and slowly just notching up that temperature in the pot, and you're the frog in that pot, right? But what they're saying, they're telling you, you don't deserve to exist. Canada, right? Canada is euthanizing people on a regular basis. It's belittling, it's bullying, and it's threatening disabled and old people into killing themselves. I just heard another story where the nurses in a Canadian healthcare workers refused to made a elderly man change his own catheter, and said, "Why don't you kill yourself?" And he broke down and was crying. It was horrific, right? But that is just Western culture. It's also, Canada deserves, because the Canadian government, all branches, are pro eugenics. If you were honest as an American, your country is fascist and it's eugenicist. That's why it insists. That's why the black and brown women have far more likelihood to die in childbirth and die generally in hospitals. Native people dying in hospitals. That's why Native Hawaiians are being wiped out as we speak. Hawaiians are leaving Hawaii every day. We're being exterminated because we're actually leftist, actual communist, actual environmentally friendly, LGBTQ+, and have full equality for all genders, and live in an environmentally sustainable way, not an overpopulate, not a environmentally destroying our islands for thousands of years. And then America, we had hydropowered, renewable, socialist, universal healthcare filled cities powered by 100% hydro turbines, and the U.S. came in and installed fossil fuel with capitalist ownership after the coup. So somewhere, you should know, you live in if you live in the West, anywhere, Europe, U.S., Canada, any affiliate of the United States, you live in a fascist, eugenicist, horrific, at the highest levels and most of the mid and bottom levels, society. If you don't know that, you gotta start actually using the Aristotelian noggin. Well, I take that back. Aristotle was a fascist and a horrible thinker and boring. But you should start thinking about that. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, so that escalated quickly, but so the thing is, when you get the articles like this, right? The tendency of the population is to turn away. The tendency of the masses is to kind of get upset and then kind of, oh, how could they say that? And then, but you should really take that. You should take it again. This is not because what happens is, oftentimes the Western media will lie to you, right? But in the lie is also in the lie is also the truth, right? They are slightly subtly telling you the truth, right? When they say things like trans people aren't people, the New York Times, so the Democrats and the Republicans of the US and the UK, the superpowers of the Western world, they say trans people aren't people. The Democrats do nothing for abortion. The Republicans go, we got to get rid of all abortions. And the Democrats go, whatever, right? Biden was going to, build back better, cancel your student debt, get you some kind of health care, not Medicare for all, but maybe something, right? And when they say, we're not going to do anything, in fact, we're going to jump in there with the right. Trans people aren't people. New York Times is doubling down and saying J.K. Rowling is right. Just starve, right? Just starve. There's a tendency in the West, because things are not quite as bad as some places, especially if you're white. It's not quite as bad as the ghetto yet. This is how the South works, right? This is how a lot of American politics works. Is a white person starving is gonna be happy as long as they're starving, but they're starving with 1/2 of a rat, and the black person has 1/4 of a rat, right? So because you live in, right, so the tendency is to take the shit that you're being handed down by your ruling class that is non-democratic, that doesn't care about you, that never has, and that has a false democracy. But because things could be a little worse, you take the narrative that you should starve, you look away from it, right? And then you get upset, and then you look at the next party that's not in power, and you think about voting for them, right? You take that and you go, well, there must be a conspiracy of a small subset of the Fortune 500, because you believe in capitalism, right? Or you believe in, maybe you capitalism is bad, but it's the best of all the other systems, right? Or something like that. That's still most Americans, right? With the exception of some millennial and Gen Z, but they don't identify as American anymore, a lot of them. But what the tendency is to take that information, right, which is the ruling class is telling you you're fucked and we're fucking you and we don't care. They don't say that, they don't say those exact words, right? But but Ohio residents demand answers 2 weeks after toxic chemical train derailment. East Palestine community holds a meeting. The Norfolk Southern Corporation skipped the event. They just said we don't care. We don't care. You're inhaling toxic hydrochloric acid, fumes, and cancer-causing. And 70 miles away, there was acid rain that literally stripped the paint from a Maserati. It was completely the paint was melted off the car from rain 70 miles away in another, almost in another state. This is a multi-state problem already, right? And I'm a native Hawaiian, so let me tell you about this. Rashes in your throat, feeling foggy-headed, animals and plants dying around you, feeling really bad. That's what it's like to drink Red Hill jet fuel in Hawaii water. So welcome to the club, Ohio. Welcome to the club, people all over Central United States. And so the other thing that just happened after that was that the U.S. Executive branch. Let me see if I got that one. The executive branch of the United States came out and said, Norfolk Southern is asking the Supreme Court to kill a lawsuit by the sick rail worker and help them block future lawsuits. The U.S. Supreme Court is helping, right? So the U.S. Supreme Court, so the executive branch at the highest levels, the so-called, right, supreme arbiters of right and wrong of the so-called United States, the Biden administration. So the executive branch is the Biden administration, and the Supreme Court, the judicial branch. The legislative branch is already involved in this because they're giving as much money and as much corporate buyback opportunities to Norfolk Southern as possible. So all three branches of the government of the most powerful Western country in the world is completely behind completely behind your the company that's literally killing unknown millions of people right now, and sickening and killing unknown millions of people right now, destroying the environment, right? Killing thousands, knowing it's already known that they've killed thousands of fish and birds, and possibly that whole area will be uninhabitable for many species for an unknown amount of time, right? People will get all kinds of cancers. These are cancer-causing chemicals. Nobody wants to say it out loud, but the United States and its companies together, they're all the same basically, are massacring their people. And the people of the United States either look away from that, they go, well, it must have been the Republicans or it must have been the Democrats, depending on, right? This is, everyone's making it into this whole, well, we're going to vote the Democrats out that did this, or we're going to vote the Republicans. No. Right? If you had any sense, if you played Neofeud, you would know. If you played Neofeud and you listened closely, you would know. Like this is a screenshot from Neofeud that I said, this is like so Neofeud right now. We, the Neofeudal elite, the captains of industry, we all deserve a little congratulations for our work. It is only fair for our hard work as billionaire, CEO, philanthropists, arms dealer playboys, that we are rewarded with dominion over all of these terrestrial living things. And that includes the 99% of the human population. They are ours to subdue and to use as we see fit. For like pets or cattle, they are not smart enough to efficiently manage themselves. This is also part of Western philosophy. This is deep Western philosophy. This is Aristotelian. I have a whole video series I'm going to upload later on about. I have a 2,000-year Western culture analysis from Greece, Rome, medieval times, colonial capitalist, British, Roman, and French, and times, U.S. 20th, 21st century. The entire Western, for the existence of the entire Western world, the belief that a minority of just, and they're always cis, white, straight men. Aristotle said men govern, slaves, and those are basically Afro-Asiatic. They're equivalent of non-white people, indigenous people in that time. The Hellenic people were masters. The Hellenic men were masters with Afro-Asiatic slaves, African and Asian slaves, and women were also servant slaves in the household. And this was the natural and the right way of things. And capitalist accumulation under the Aristotelian genius men, right? Like Bill Gates, like, Elon, right? Elon he's just modern Aristotle. This is the natural way of things. When things are out of balance, chaos reigns, and all are subject to slavery, right? All of everything falls apart when the correct men, the wealthy, and he specifically said the capital accumulation is the goal of the good life is to accumulate as much wealth as possible, utilizing properly, like much like the slave is the hand and the foot, and the white man is the head. And so when the hand commands the head and the foot is out of alignment, right, then the body falls apart. And so all are subject to suffering and slavery. So we need women to be slaves and people of color to be slaves under a capitalist Greek structure led by white rich men. Otherwise, everything goes bad. This is all the way back. This is American philosophy. This is Thomas Jefferson. And anyway, but I have a whole 10-hour series about that, so I don't want to redo that right now. But coming back to this point though, so when King Warren, his name is King Warren Clinton Bush, which is very important. His name is Clinton Bush because the Democrats and the Republicans they're all best friends, they're on the same boat. All in the Bible, Paul takes the Greek philosophy and reinstitutes it through biblical, with biblical, Holy Roman Christianized characteristics, where he basically said he has the same speeches where basically everyone is there to be subdued and operated for, by, and of the wealthiest, whitest men, specifically them. There are slight modifications in the Democratic Party to allow the leaning in types like Hillary Clinton towards the end of the 20th century, but only towards the end of the 20th century. Took them a long time. 99%, but the majority of the population exists to serve. They are not the mind, The majority of the population are mentally feeble. They are inept. They are the hoi polloi is the unwashed masses. What the British would the descendants of the Greco-Romans, the British would call their people the unwashed urchins in the streets of London. But everyone else outside of the palace, everyone who is not already privileged and wealthy, which they then weaponize against everyone else. Everyone who is not of wealth is not worthy of leading, should not make decisions, should not be asked to make decisions. Their place is not to make decisions under slavery, colonialism, capitalism, racist, feudalism, whatever it is. They're all the same system with different branding depending on the what is in vogue that year. I mean that literally in the sense of the sartorial dimension. I did a whole stream last week about neo-feudalism and Pretty in Pink, which is all about the style, fashion, dimensions of these structures, right? Anyways, so the point though is that the belief that people can't make the belief that the masses of a population, right, the majority of the population. So this is fundamentally anti-communist. It's fundamentally anti-communist. It's anti-socialist. It's anti-left. It's anti-democracy. It's right. This is the interesting thing. The so-called Great Greek Civilization invented democracy, but they never practiced it. Well, it was a democracy for the oligarchy, right? And so where was before I know I jumped off into 5 different dovetails. Let me defeather that turkey a little bit. The overpopulation narrative is the only possible if you maintain, right, the Greco-Roman, British, French, feudal, capitalist, colonial structures, lifeways, philosophy, sociopolitics, economics, and the geostrategic politics of the 21st century, which leads to Wolfowitz doctrine, neocon, Project for New American Century, and finally a planned hybrid war on China and all of its extraterrestrial / Sino balloons flying around Michigan. Conveniently flying around Michigan, right in the middle of its neighboring state, Ohio, having the American Chernobyl pollute its waterways and land at the same time. Anyway, so the point is that the only possible outcome of that way of thinking, which is that most people deserve and must serve, right? And then a tiny minority of people will govern, right? That's Davos, right? That's the Trilateral Commission, right? Which is the same kind of people show up for that. And the Bilderberg Group, speaking of 90s conspiracy shows, but it's not really a conspiracy. You just look at the Force 500 and look at the people who look at where all of the contributions, look, the Princeton and Harvard and Ash Institutes all do regular studies on this, and they all confirm, right? They all confirm what everybody knows, right? Which is that 99% of all policy of the government of the United States and all economic decisions, everything is determined by whatever gets the most dollars thrown at it, which is disproportionately people who have feudal, inherited titles from the Euro medieval days, capitalist, white privilege, male privilege, straight privilege. And the more you have of each of those things, the higher up you are. And that's who determines all the decisions for what is happening in the entire society to this very second. It has never not been that way anywhere in Europe or its Greco-Roman predecessors, period, ever. It is never. There have been a few beheadings or two in France, and they went straight back to that system. And in fact, it was a big outrage. It was a little blowing off some steam, and they went straight back to imperialism. And ask the Vietnamese how the French treated them. Ask West Africa how the French
are still treating them. Right? Ask the world's richest man, CEO of the conglomerate which owns Louis Vuitton, right? Ask his subordinates in France how that went. The reality is that all of that, all of those, the decisions have never been democratic, and they are always. And so, if you don't have democratic decision making, if you don't have collectivist lifeways, if you don't have, as I said, a healed culture that acknowledges other human beings other than yourself and other than the rich and a small disproportionate subset of them as being intelligent, as being worthy of existing, as of being not deserving of slavery and exploitation, right? It's very important to remember Western society at all levels believes, even if in people who are to this day, those who under neo-feudal capitalism believe they are temporarily embarrassed royalty, temporarily embarrassed millionaires, those people give credence to that rest of that system. I mean, obviously the rich billionaires believe in it. Elon believes in it, right? But everyone else who kneels down, or even if you don't need it, even if you begrudgingly show up to work and you don't general strike and overthrow your system in a video game, you couldn't do that. Could never recommend doing that on the violation of the TOS here. But if people actually, right, followed what some of their philosophers sometimes talked about before they were put into the stocks and the pillory or exiled, like Voltaire, and like when the social contract is broken, people must revolt. That's the joke. Nobody ever actually did that. Not really. And when they did revolt, it was always it's either put down or they're all bought off. Which is not to say that they can't do it. It's just to say that nobody has been able to get it together yet in the West ever. They make a commune somewhere in the outskirts of Portland, and then they get bored and they don't know how to farm the tomatoes, and then somebody goes into gets a COINTELPRO call, and then they all get fucked. Or and when Black and Indigenous people try to do it, we try very hard, but it's they don't get the support that we need, and then shit goes bad, and Fred Hampton gets his head shot off. So anyways, but I'm like way off the topic. I was supposed to be more in the white, pre-K version of my stream. So anyways, sick philosophy, i.e. overpopulation, metaphysical, Doomering, and Utopia is starting. So the overpopulation. So anyway, my point is that if overpopulation it's like if you have all of this consumption of resources, right, and you don't look at the information that you need to be looking at, which is that if you don't have an actual analysis of, you have a capitalist structure, you have a racist structure, you have a colonialist structure, you have this military industrial complex that is like literally the world's largest carbon emitter, speaking of all these things, right? If you don't have I don't want to call it even a left analysis, an anarchist, a communist, or Marxist analysis. I wouldn't even call it Aloha, my native Hawaiian indigenous Aloha, Pono, and Kuleanaist analysis. I won't even call it you don't need a Cuban, a Chinese, a Vietnamese, a Russian analysis. If you just have, if you had a truthful analysis, right, of the economics and the politics and the actual structure of your society and the facts on the ground, not just a subset of the facts on the ground, like there's a lot of the temperature has gone up. That's not enough, right? You have to go like, why is the temperature gone up? Okay, well, cars are emitting carbon dioxide. Yes, but why are so many cars emitting so much carbon dioxide? Well, because the United States didn't listen to the Native Hawaiians, have the world's class low carbon emitting rail and power with hydroelectric and renewable technologies. Why did the United States not follow actually advanced indigenous cultures like the Native Hawaiians, right? Now I'm gonna have to do this a little bit, because this is where having true education is the only way to get out of sick philosophy and homicidal thinking, like broken nonsensical thing like overpopulation theory, vegan psychotic imperialism, and these kinds of thinking, or you can preserve Western ways and also preserve life on the earth. False, all false. As catastrophic train wrecks, right, destroy ecology, right, as pandemics, right? As pandemics destroy human life in some countries, the Western ones, the capitalist ones, as the environment, as the resources are dwindling, as food is running short in some countries, where mismanagement of their lands, their fowl, like the birds, and their food stocks, and their failure to, and their just-in-time capitalist preparation structures, as these dystopian, apocalyptic realities hit formerly middle-class Western populations, right? And in particular, East Palestine's Ohio disaster. Remember that Hawaii had world-class public-owned rail, right? Because, there's that video going around, right? Let me see if I get that little. I had that little. I think I shared that little video of the what the train tracks look like. It is It is actually deplorable. It is not in a pejorative way to red state voters. I'm talking about the train tracks were completely. I was amazed that any train could move at all. I couldn't walk on these tracks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't think Spider-Man could get on these tracks. What is happening here? What reliable infrastructure in the United States, let alone safe train tracks in Ohio, is non-existent. There's a reason no politician in the United States will ever tweet about any infrastructure bill along with photos of the actual improvements being made. So look at this train track though. What? You know what I'm saying? This train track, this train track looks like somebody who had 25 bottles of vodka. It looks like somebody who had 25 bottles of vodka and has a neurodegenerative disease is trying to draw a straight line. You know what I'm saying? No shade if you got, you have Michael J. Fox similar syndromes, but I'm just saying I couldn't draw a line that was more crooked than that. And I'm really good at drawing crooked lines. That's why I take forever to paint Neofeud 2 artwork. I'm so sorry. To Neofeud 2 aficionados and fans that really want it out. But anyways, look at how crooked the line. That is the train tracks that the trains of the United States are driving on. I mean, how can a train even get over that? I'm watching that. I'm biting my nails. There. See, I'm biting. Literally, I'm gritting my teeth, waiting for that train to just topple over and spill, a million tons of PFAS and vinyl chloride and radioactive, uranium runoff or some shit, So, the problem with the United States, you got it all backwards. Your population is super straight normative, and your train tracks are super not straight. But your train track should be straight, and your population should be more gay. You know what I'm saying? Or you should enable people to be queer. You should have train track. Your people should be, but the train track should be straight. That's the problem with the West. You're too straight in your human population, and then you're too crooked in your train tracks. I solved the West's problems. You see? Anyway, the Star-Spangled FF tier infrastructure pairs well with ChatGPT coded self-crashing cars, Boeing planes made of Mountain Dew cans and discarded RC car motors. Oh, my good friend, my best friend, the Boeing plane. I just shout out to my good friend, the Boeing plane. I used to use this as an example all the time. Where's my Boeing plane? Yeah, Boeing 747, hot off the press, straight into the dumpster. Brand new Boeing 7. Speaking of when I was talking about neo-feudal capitalism, or Yanis Varoufakis calls it techno-feudal post-capitalism, I used to bring up the Boeing plane, specifically the Boeing 737 MAX, which came off of its presses, missing bolts. With its AI is more mal-coded than Elon Musk's 3 a.m. scribbles into Twitter that causes it to break every morning. You know what I'm saying? The Boeing 737 Supermax crashed multiple times, had to be grounded. The entire fleet was basically a waste of multi-tens of billions of dollars. It tanked the share price of Boeing 40%. And the Boeing Corporation was rewarded with twice as much money from the U.S. federal government that it was then used to do corporate buybacks to reward all of its CEOs and CTOs with more millions of dollars of pay packages. So, and I love that because that's just American. That's just normal America. That's the Western way. That's just Aristotle. That's Plato. That is Thomas Jefferson. That is that's just Britain and France and America. That's just how they roll. And I love Elon because Elon really shows the kind of the quality of Western culture. Elon is the best the West has to offer, and I absolutely mean that. Terrible, sub-mediocre leadership couldn't tweet his way out of a cardboard box and runs everything absolutely horribly like a king. You know what I'm saying? Like a Hellenic white man badly managing his orchard, causing ships to crash in the Mediterranean, which they did on a regular basis, by the way. And they lost a lot of money making bets. Elon runs his ship, he runs his planes perfectly when it comes for the West. So anyways, the Boeing 747 is hot off the press, straight into the dumpster. Brand new 747 scrapped after 16 flights. It's not transparent who exactly is buying them. It's a very, very... Anyways, so it's basically like we made some of these planes. Nobody is even buying them. So again, but the point doesn't... As I said before, and I have a whole... Anyway, I have lots of other streams about that point. It doesn't matter what you make in the 21st century, in the end stage... In end stage Westernism, it doesn't matter if you make planes that crash, you get twice the money for it, right? There was a point in which you could make a plane and it would be exploitative, racist, capitalist, underpaid serfs and slaves making it in their assembly lines, and the minerals would all be unethically mined next to the blood diamonds, right? Out of an African and South American colony. But at least you will get a plane at the end. But now you can do all those terrible things, and then you can make money making broken planes that fly slightly better than a drunken swallow, the European. I take that back. I said that's not fair to the swallows. These planes don't fly at all. Anyways, okay, I'll stop being doing that. So anyways. But with the point is that the trains. What I want to come back to is why do we have sick philosophy, right? Why are people looking to dystopia? Why are they looking for overpopulation theory? Why is that the theory, right? Why are people saying there's too many humans, right? Why is there so many antinatalists in the left, right? Why is there not even a left? Everybody's like, I just thought like Thought Slime and like 5 other former leftists be like, I guess there's no left anymore. It's just like, I'm not going to be a left. I don't even know what a left is. What is a left? I don't know, right? It's like you're watching like everyone doomer out all at the same time. And part of that is because, everyone's watching everyone play the turf billionaire symbol of the UK. There's Captain America, right? And then there's Captain Britain is J.K. Rowling, right? And all of the leftists are over there playing turf, pro-slavery, let's suppress Goblin Haiti, basically. J.K. Rowling, because Haiti, let's suppress the Jamaican uprising. That's what the new Magic Wizard game is about. And also, trans people don't deserve to live. So everyone in the West is watching the left, whatever there was, influencers on Twitch, etc., are watching everyone else completely throw whatever, a supposed virtue, a supposed ideology, supposed values they had out the window for a little badly programmed, boring as fuck looking millennial nostalgia. And they're just like, well, I'll make some money and maybe I'll have fun playing this not very fun Harry Potter game because I read Harry Potter books and I don't give a shit about trans people or the fact that, this game, the main thing is that people don't care about most of the Western quote unquote left, not the center and the right definitely don't. Most of the Western left don't even have it. They don't care enough about trans people to not make the choice to not be entertained for a little bit. You can play any game. it's not even it's not like you have to give up food or give your life for trans people. Just like don't play this one game. It's just like out of the millions of games you could play, just don't play this one. And nobody is willing to, or not nobody, but like the majority of people who call themselves even left are not willing to give up optional entertainment for their fellow people, right? And so that's causing a lot of problems. That's not kind of problem. That's revealing a lot of truth about Western culture. As I said, I tweeted that earlier because I was like, obviously, just a slight sidebar. I'm dovetailing off of my thing, but I think it's an important one just because of what's happening right now, which is that what I said, is that Neofeud is on sale, of course. So help us out if you can, help us pay bills and keep a roof over our head, as well as you get an anti-capitalist, anti-racist cyberpunk game. Also, Silver Spoon Games, which we are a non-capitalist cooperative, or a hui is the Hawaiian word for that. We're also anti-slavery and anti-Semitism. Apparently, that's a thing that many games are not nowadays, like Harry Potter. Also, we support trans people, and I'm a native Hawaiian and identify non-binary myself. John Cena's performances will be banned under many new anti-trans laws, as well. This wave of anti-queer hate, including in Twitch and gaming world, is terrible and has to stop. Obviously, this is not just in the gaming world. This is just across the board. There are anti-trans laws, twice as many this year being passed as the last year, and the last 4 years in a row have had the most anti-trans bills ever. Each one is a new record, right? New York Times already was a half-rate neoliberal rag that could have been written by a chat GPT. Now it is full turf garbage. So the Democrats and the Republicans, so the so-called liberal paper is going full Rowling, which in one sense, it's kind of like Elon. Like, I love this. This is really good because you know what this does? This shows you what you should already know, which is that there is only 2 right-wing parties in the United States and in Britain. Whatever number of parties there are, that's how many right-wing parties there are. So if you didn't know that, now you know that. Now you know what I'm trying to say all the time, and everybody puts their finger in their ear and they go la 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 la. Like as I said earlier about they're trying to starve you. They're telling you what they're gonna do. You just don't want to hear because it's too hard. Because your life feels too. You do have too many privileges, and it's too kind of like choosing to play the Harry Potter game because you'd rather like have a small amount of shallow pleasure and self gratification than actually do the right thing. Which that is deeply Greek, Roman, British, French, Spanish, and American, right? Self above all else. Screw everyone else, right? The West is the place of the individual, and the East is the place of the collective. Now, pejoratively, they say it's the hive mind, despotic, but it means people who actually care about other people. That's what it actually means. And they also are individuals, but they also like have collective and communal and also historical. They think in terms of history through time and also through space. And the West is the place that thinks in my time, YOLO, right? That's what that means. I only live once, right? And only only me, my time, and my space. And if you're not in my backyard, I don't give a shit about the environmental catastrophe, and I don't give a shit about how you're being targeted for violence because you're trans, because you're not me. So when this happens, this is perfect because this should tell you what you should know if you're an American, a British, Canadian, New Zealander, Australian, or whatever one of those you are. Which is that you have no left-wing party. You have no left, but there's other, colonized people that you're probably on top of that you can probably support and work with and learn from, in fact. And that's why they got to ban African studies, not just in Florida, all across the United States, and you have to ban CRT, because if you actually connected with some cultures that actually had healed lifeways and had survivable, functioning lifeways and cultures and economics and politics, then you might stop the people that have run the West for the last 2,000 years. But most people are not ready for that. New York Times seems to believe Bing's AI deserves more rights than trans people. So I want to be alive. New York Times says I had a 2-hour conversation, and I believe that Microsoft's new chatbot is in love with me, and I want to help it understand that it shouldn't destroy humanity. And I really think that a Microsoft multi-billion-dollar corporation's badly programmed robot database, like glorified database, is deserving of more rights than the trans people that I'm currently getting killed at the New York Times. So I just want to say that not more than it's not the Neofeud on sale, but I want to say that Silver Spoon Games stands firmly with the trans people, not least of which because that's actually that's Hawaiian culture. Because we had, as I said, we had entire very revered and important people that called Mahu. That's not the same as any Western word for it, but it's not a two-spirit either, which is an indigenous Turtle Island gender. But Hawaiians didn't have a conception of judging and certainly not harming people and trying to eradicate people because of the way that they express gender. So, in fact, Hawaiians only had one pronoun for he, she, and it, ya. So actually, not only between humans were not judged based on differences of gender expression and subjugated based on that, but also humans did not were not put above nature, right? That's actually baked into all Western languages. Humans are above nature, and certain genders are below others. Every Romance language, which came from the Romans, which means came from the Greeks, right? All have that characteristic. There are some actually indigenous languages or non-Western Romance languages in Europe that are in small regions in the mountains. One of them is the Basque region that have different constructions. Also, the places that have the most successful worker cooperatives and socialist economics. The Basque region of Spain specifically. But they're one that was not deeply impacted by the Greco-Roman invasions. Anyways, so just a fun fact for you. That actually similar language to the native Hawaiians. But anyways, I'm way off of my topic. Okay, let me finish the history lesson though. So, as catastrophic train wrecks destroy ecology and health in East Palestine, Ohio, due to capitalist greed, Hawaii had world-class public rail, electric, and universal health care. My point was that, when I was in that other thread, was that the trains are falling apart, right? Most importantly, the trains are falling apart. The planes, all transportation, all the infrastructure, planes, trains, trucks are not being driven, right? The collapse of there was this whole article, Wired, it was a long read, but Life as a 21st century trucker. This is a story about the technology, corporate greed, and supply chain chaos, the transforming the life behind the wheel of the big rig. And then the takeaway from this is that all of the truck drivers, or so many of the truck drivers, are quitting. They're being so maltreated. They're leaving. No one is replacing them. And so supply chains, consequently, because trucks are part of the supply chain, getting your eggs, your oil, your groceries, your everything, your 44-inch TV screens to your house. The supply chains are all collapsing, all because of the same structure. So anyway, but as the catastrophic train wrecks destroy ecology and health, if the U.S. Hawaii had world-class public-owned rail, world-class, the best in the world, electric and universal healthcare, electricity when most of America still was going without electricity. If the U.S. had learned from Hawaii's socialist system, disasters like these would have been avoided. So prior to the U.S. coup, Hawaii had the world's highest literacy rate, 98%, universal healthcare, electricity, electric lights before the White House, mass affordable transit, industrialization, virtually no homelessness, and full racial equality for all people. Happy African Liberation or Black History Month, depending on what you call it. Post-coup, all these statistics reversed. So this is faced with the frail preconceptions about Hawaii. Europeans exclaimed at a Paris exposition, with a vastly outdoing them in terms of literacy and their total publications from the people of Hawaii. Just average people. Average people in Europe were not allowed to get high-quality educations, let alone publish. But Hawaii, everyone was educated. Because again, Hawaii, unlike the West, believed that all people have much to contribute, not simply a small subset of wealthy men as the Hellenic Greeks did, as the British feudal colonial capitalists royalty did, as the Americans do. Hawaiians believed everyone deserved and was required and would be best empowered to contribute if they all had education. 98%, not only had 98% literacy, virtually everybody had the best education. There was no inequality of education. There's no Western country can speak to that. Why is Exeter $60,000 a year? Why are most public schools falling apart? Anyway, you know this. You know this. You know that your country, the United States or whatever Western country you come from, was by far inferior to Hawaii. Not inferior in like genetically, but inferior in the sense of that it was a terrible structure that has caused the problems that you have, including climate change, ecological destruction, collapsing rail, environmental disasters, mass inequality, racism, fascism, war. All these things are because of Western ways, capitalism being one of them. And this is why you have to actually learn from the other 90% of the world that don't have all the answers. They just have a lot more of the answers and have the capacity to sustain their own countries, people's economies without destroying everything, unlike you. Post-coup, all these statistics reversed. Established in 1859, Queen's Hospital provided healthcare at no charge to the people of Hawaii. After the illegal military occupation by the U.S., there was a concerted attempt to defund and destroy the world's first universal healthcare system. Established 8 years before Das Kapital, a full century before any attempt at universal healthcare was made in any Western European American country. And they never succeeded, I would argue. The electrified country of 1880s Hawaii, powered by renewable hydro turbines with affordable mass transit. So again, Hawaii's rail, look at 1880s Hawaii's rail, and then look at 1880s Hawaii's rail. Now look at 2023 American rail. Okay, again, 2023 American rail. The breaks of these trains were made during the Civil War. So 1880s American rail. 2023 American rail, 1880s Hawaii rail. Fun fact, after the US coup, the US had a concerted attempt to bury all the rail that we had. There's areas where you see railroad road, there was so much high quality rail here. When you drive through the Dole Plantation tourist trap nonsense area in Hawaii, you can see some of the tracks. But the U.S. has done its best to bury all of the tracks. Why? Because the same reason they bury tracks all over the United States. Because capitalists benefit more from mass auto industry and privatized capitalist auto industry, which is why Elon's Teslas are what is the solution to our problems. Even though they set everyone on fire and 500,000 had to be recalled because the brakes are broken and they speed off at 200 miles and run over children in the suburbs because of his broken AI that Elon can't code and he stops his actual coders from working on and then releases too early. Because Elon is the modern day epitome of the West. So Hawaii had it had a massive and very successful and super high quality rail system, and the United States intentionally destroyed it. Many Americans think Hawaiians lived in huts prior to colonization. The U.S. actually deindustrialized Hawaii. Before 1898, we already had mass transit, electricity, railroads. The city of Honolulu had nationalized renewable hydropower before the White House had electricity. Let me say that again. You have problems with climate change? Hawaii was a renewable powered sovereign socialist country. If the West had copied Hawaii rather than overthrown Hawaii to install racist, capitalist, fossil fuel burning, electric, racist, capitalist, murder, like slave plantations staffed by Filipinos and United Fruit Company / Marcos dictatorship like death squads that put down uprisings for racialized capitalism. If the U.S. had never entered Hawaii and copied Hawaii, if Britain and France had copied Hawaii rather than supported the U.S., and to this day, if Canada and all these other and Japan had copied Hawaii rather than bent the knee to the United States and its Western primacy, well, then you wouldn't be suffering all of the catastrophic impacts that you are suffering today, including climate change, certainly not to the extent that you are suffering it. But the refusal of the West to even investigate what I'm telling you right now, and the refusal, obviously, of all parties of all Western governments to add this to the curriculum, right? Which is why this is why you have sick. My point is, this is why you have sick philosophy, is because all the information and the knowledge which you're basing your conclusions on is completely and utterly fraudulent where it matters most, and basically almost everywhere, with the exception of maybe mathematics and gravity. And so that's why you come up with these bogus ideas like everything is falling apart because there's too many humans, or let's all doomer out and give up and just like play our shitty turf video game till we die of starvation and COVID-19, or some other green imperialism. If we just eat vegan and maintain capitalism and racism, that's going to solve all of our problems. Take your pick. Take your pick of the solutions that the West has on offer to the problem of their own dystopia that they caused for the global South and the black and the brown and Asian populations. And now, only now, the white world gets to experience. The reason why you don't have the solutions, and you should not look up your own ass for the solutions, because the only thing you'll find there is bullshit, because that's all you've ever produced. So Americans think that, anyways, Hawaii also, I already said that Hawaii has the highest literacy rate. This thread I go through frequently, so I won't go through the whole thing, but we did invent submarines when Jules Verne was dreaming up 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Hawaii was a sovereign country that had black citizens before the U.S. Civil War. In 2023, even white queer and white and black queer and white trans people like Keffels are going to bat for anti-blackness and empire and the military-industrial complex. And that's, I'm not to throw shade at people who are white and queer. I'm just saying, still to this day, you cannot even the so-called left cannot figure out how to get its act together and simply say, right? Somebody said, why is the white left always let us black and brown people should stop talking about racism? Why is working class solidarity, black and brown people should stop talking about racism when it should be white people should stop being racist and hating on black and brown people, right? That you still to this day you can't get that shit. You can't get that together. Hawaii was a country that actually had all those things I just said. It actually had a social. The reason why Hawaii had both the reason why it was anti-racist and anti-capitalist is because those two come together. Hawaii had sovereign Hawaii had black citizens before the U.S. Civil War. Black slaves that stepped off of their boat into Hawaiian soil were considered free. Chinese were full citizens in Hawaii as the U.S. chained them up to build railroads on the West Coast. So this was Anthony Allen is one of many who was born into slavery in New York City in 1774. He fled slavery at 24 for a life at sea. He bought his freedom somehow, which is not an option for most slaves. We should add, for African slaves, that was not an option. In Waikiki, however, Allen became a successful businessman, and he contributed, among other things, the first bowling alley in Hawaii, built the first carriage road up Manoa Valley, built a school, and ran the first hospital for American seamen in Honolulu. So a slave in the United States became a moderately prosperous African person in Hawaii. And very important to remember for people who are still to this day trying to figure out how to get the U.S. cops to get defunded and stop kneeling on the neck. America will never defund its cops. America needs its knights and its Hellenic slavery catchers. Its Hellenic slave catchers. An example of actual equality. Anyway, so in case you don't know this though, just real quick, Hawaii was an example of actual equality, actual democracy, actual existing socialism, which the West has never had and never will, unfortunately, it seems. without racial hatred, greater technological advancement, and a person of color nature that put the U.S., the West, and Europe to shame, blew their white man's burden out of the water, which is why they illegally crushed the whites. So that's, anyway, that's a picture of the West being abject liars and serial racists. Asians, this was published in the New York Times, by the way. So the New York Times has a long legacy, a great and rich heritage of putting swastikas in their crossword puzzles, supporting billionaire pro-Nazi turfs like J.K. Rowling, and having the most racist, abhorrent, garbage cartoons in their pages. So this is really the legacy of the New York Times. There's no left journalism in the U.S. Asian nor political parties. Asians, particularly Chinese. Anyways, long story short, and some of our relatives in Asia were inspired by the independent Kingdom of Hawaii as a model for a technologically modern, politically independent, actively anti-imperialist China. The key proposal was socialism. So China is one place. The Chinese are not looking at dystopia stories nowadays. You know, it's not really a thing that they're deep in their psyche that they're worried about. You know, the nightmares of a place are explored in their science fiction and their cautionary tales, and that's not really. They do think about problems, but that's not really total ecological collapse and their entire society being run by billionaire psychopaths is not a problem that they have because they don't live in that kind of society. Africa also doesn't have that worry. They have the worry of possibly Euro-colonialism suppressing them, but internally they have much more hope for the future. In fact, if they can continue the path of multipolarity and building win-win global cooperation and towards socialism. They're not worrying about everything falling apart. You know who's worrying about everything falling apart is people. You know, it's there's a Chinese saying. What is it? The killer looks out and sees killers. The thief looks out and sees thieves in the world. Everyone is a thief. Buddha looks out and sees Buddha in the world. Right. The Western science fiction and nonfiction see killers, dystopia, death, destruction in the world. Because that's who they are. When they look at China, they see a Chinese spy balloon that's going to drop a nuclear bomb on them. Because that's who they are. They're the people who drop nuclear bombs on others and plan to do it 60 times to China. Ask Daniel Ellsberg. When they look out, they see an evil Russia authoritarian that's going to stomp them and kill everyone and is committing massive genocide, even though they're the place that actually fights a lot of historically, the Nazis. And the U.S. is the one backing them right now with Stepan Bandera worshippers in Ukraine. But they can't look at that fact that they're the ones literally backing and supporting literal Nazis, right? It was only a matter of time before the swastikas showed up in the New York Times. When you write so many pro-Nazi articles all day long, UK writing so many pro-Nazi articles, it's only a matter of time before the swastikas, you know, and the slightly slanted swastika, the Slava Ukraini symbol, which is the same thing, shows up inside of your. Not that they weren't already in the country, but the kind of more 1940s style fascism. But that's the kind of place that you live in. You live in a fascist country because your country openly, literally in the UN, openly backs Nazis, xenophobia, and racism. You can see look at the most recent UN votes on the countries that support, so literally support Nazism. There are countries that support it, or they voted against a UN resolution to combat Nazism, xenophobia, and racism. And you live in one of those countries. Anyways, so but that's enough. That's enough of me being upset today about the occupation. But the point is that he's like if people who live in dystopias understood this history, they would not resort to these incorrect solutions to the problems that they have, right? The sickness. I'm not talking, and the sick philosophy of people like Mr. Christie in this show Dystopia, where he believes that the solution to our problems, right? The solution to John Cusack's character, he believes the solution to the problems are humans are consuming resources. Number one, it's rich white humans disproportionately consuming the resources in the first world, not the global south, right? In fact, this cannot be brought up enough. Indigenous people actually even inside of the richest, most powerful countries in the world, like the United States. Let's see, 25%. Even climate change, 25%. Yeah. So indigenous resistance has averted 25% of U.S. and Canadian annual emissions. So if we're talking specifically about the planetary destruction, ecological destruction that is being brought about by climate change, even inside of the United States and Canada, 25%. So literally, indigenous people have a negative. They have like a per capita. They have a negative 1,200% carbon emissions rating, right? But you have white rich vegans inside of Toronto shopping till they dropping, right? Flying on private jets and stuff, right? Inside of Toronto, right? People kind of like Mr. Christie in Utopia, right? I'm much holier than thou. I'm holier than thou because this character, because I bike to work. You bike to work and then you flew on a private jet 3 times today. You consume more carbon than an American does. The average American, Hummer driving American, consumes in an entire lifetime this week. And those are the kind of people, right, who look down at the non-Western people, and they go, well, we have to get rid of those people because indigenous people are stupid. They're superstitious, which is stupid. Black people are. There's literal articles. Look at if you want some nightmares, or actually don't read these articles because you might actually believe them. Because if you're steeped in Western propaganda, they're very eloquent bullshit filled. Long-termists is another sub name of the people that Elon look up to. The people like Nick Land, accelerationist was one of their names. I had to be associated with these people when I was studying to be a neurocognitive, a cognitive computing and or neuroscientist at one point in the early noughties. Transhumanists, accelerationists, the Singularity Institute, the Humanity Institute, Nick Bostrom, and the long-termists who believe that elimination of mass numbers of they're basically the sequel to the overpopulationists of the 1960s, 70s, right? Who looked at the world and they said, we want an American-led capitalist planet, and so we're gonna, if we can't have capitalism at the current rate of our consumption, we're gonna get rid of lots of the human population and continue consuming at the current rate, but with less people. Also, The Peripheral, William Gibson book, but it's also wrapped up in the same philosophy, right? The Peripheral is a cyberpunk science fiction author. He's actually the same guy who wrote Johnny Mnemonic. I talked about Johnny Mnemonic, right? And so The Peripheral is a cyberpunk science fiction author's take on this same problem, right? Which is that, I shouldn't say his take. No, it is his take. It's actually Johnny Mnemonic, same author as Johnny Mnemonic. But The Peripheral is a story of 100 years from now, everything gets wiped out. Climate change, pandemic, same old, right? Climate change, pandemic, war, nuclear war, electric blackout, runaway, gray goo, or not gray goo, that would wipe the whole earth. The earth would just be a blob of paper clips at that point. So maybe not that one, but climate change, pandemic, nuclear war, subnuclear war, fascism, food shortages, racial inequalities, all of that happens, right? This is another stream I did last year. And then in totality, over 8 decades, that wipes out 80% of the population. Or maybe it's like several decades, not all at once. So that is more like what's happening, right? The dystopia is already in the United States, right? And it's not wiping it. And the thing is, peripheral, the world is, yes, a lot of global south is suffering, but most of the non-Western, non-capitalist, non-US affiliated world is actually coming together to push back against the global north, right? That's why part of why your eggs is going up, part of why the inflation is happening is because the imperialists who are used to getting $1 an hour slave wages and 99% 99 times cheaper cobalt, copper, lithium, etc., right? They didn't get the lithium at the price they want. The U.S. generals are there talking about, we want that lithium triangle, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, we want that lithium triangle. And Bolivia, Peru, and Chile are going, hell no, we're not going to give you our resources for free. And so because the U.S. capitalists, Western capitalists, can't get super cheap slave labor and, horrific colonial plunder levels of north-south profit colonial margins, they're just jacking the prices up inside their own countries. That's what they're not telling you. Now, getting mad at people in South America, Africa, Asia, getting mad at China because something they took my job, getting mad at Africa because why don't we have our colonies again? That's not going to do you any good at this point. It's not going to do you any good at this point. Hypersonic nuclear fractional orbital bombardment is what you're going to get. You don't have a fallout shelter. Mark Zuckerberg does. He has one in New Zealand. He has several. He has one in Hawaii, one in New Zealand, several inside of the continent of the United States. Larry Ellison does. He has one in Lanai and several others around the world. Elon Musk has a fallout shelter when he tries to start nuclear war. You don't have one. But the problem, anyway, the problem that you get actual nuclear war is, it's not zero, but it's also not as likely as people think, because the capacity to even operate the U.S. can't even fly Boeing planes, and I seriously doubt its capacity to even have the ability to get the technicians and the aeronautics engineers and the space engineers on board with a nuclear strike. So, but anyway, that's some of that is science fictional speculation, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that the thinking is still everything is going to die. We're all going to suffer. And so in the peripheral, it's like, it's an inevitability. It's an inevitability that what will happen. It's very doomerist, it's very Western, stupid doomerist. And William Gibson is very good at writing, but he's still a Western man. You know what I'm saying? He's very good at putting pretty words together in an eloquent sentence, but that's still he's still not outside of the West. The only thing that can happen is that everything will fall apart and the world will be depopulated of 4/5 of its people. And then things, they don't actually get better. So actually, in the peripheral is at least a little bit honest about that. So after the UK and rich British douchebags like this guy, after people like J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk who run your countries have depopulated the rest of the world, they'll run what remains of the world like a slave camp and kill people and force more people to starve after they've already starved most. So now that we starve people, can we fuck this world up? Like, now that we fucked the world and had to kill off 4/5 of the population, can we expand and then kill off some more of the population? So, as I said, right, there is no hope within the Western mind. Even the brightest of the West have no solution within their own legacies, within their own pantheons, within their own intellectual, within their own intellectual codices, within their own history and libraries of thinking. There is no way out. They don't have anything out. What Marx has was plagiarized from indigenous people. It's very important to note. I'm not saying that you should read Marx. I'm just saying that that's not Western thinking that he's actually enacting. If anything, it has Eastern characteristics. It has some aspects of that, but a lot of that is straight indigenous Turtle Island philosophy and thinking. Specifically, Iroquois and the Six Nations. There's this video, Stolen Anarchy, if you want to learn about that. But that's not actually Western. That's not Western thinking. That is dialectical materialism. I would argue is indigenous, non-Western thinking imported across the Atlantic. But but you see what I'm saying. My point is that like some of that Hawaii also had these ways of these lived life ways and civilizational ways, but the West doesn't have it. All it knows is how to have a tiny minority of people that wreck everything and exploit everyone, build something up, collapse like the Romans did, like the Greeks did, like the British, the French did, like they all do, like the Babylonians did, like the Byzantine did. Build something up, explode, pillage, destroy, plunder, collapse, and then don't get better from the wreckage, and then fuck up again. And so That's why you don't. That's why you gotta really watch out. Don't listen to those people, man. So, anyways, I apologize. Well, I apologize, except not really to the three white guys who quit the stream after I went on that one. I know Big Teal and Strin are like in fire, but that's. I know it doesn't make you feel good, but I mean, my point is that part of the stream is not to make you feel good. That part is to hopefully give people a wake up call. But so if you let me finish this up. I'm kind of coming to the end already. It's 1:10. So I do want to bring up all those different, again, let's go back through them, right? So we have, I mean, just a little random spattering, right? But we've got Johnny Mnemonic, right? Dystopian apocalypse, conspiratorial organizations, plotting to, bring about the pandemic end to majority of the population and sell them expensive cures to make tons of profits as the population is removed. You got, what was the other one I brought up? Johnny Mnemonic. You have Deus Ex, right? There's a video game, right? Deus Ex, the conspiracy where a minority of super rich white dudes conspire to create a plague that is going to kill the mass majority of the population and make tons of money, charging for thousands of dollars for the cure that they manufacture specifically for the plague they created, depopulating the world and then making tons of money while doing it, and destroying ecology. They destroy ecology and cause all kinds of other problems as well. And then you have, I just went over the Peripheral, but these stories. I mean, the stories, in some senses, I feel like Western, because as I said, I am a PhD in I'm a West expert. I'm an expert in U.S. and U.K. and European studies. I'm the West whisperer. So, but the thing that is the core of a lot of those stories is a fear of, again, too many people. Obviously, making money, capitalism. But what do we do about this planet's? What do we do about the overconsumption of resources? Right. Solution: wipe out people. Pandemic is a convenient way. It's a very convenient way. Obviously, starvation it's harder to offload that onto someone else. It's harder to make that happen without mass uprising. So actually, the studies that they've done, and they've done studies, is that wiping out mass numbers of people with some kind of global pandemic, whether natural or not natural, whatever it is a way that causes the least amount. It's a way that's most easy to scapegoat a person, an organization, another country, right? Because once the virus is circulating, you can't really find the smoking gun. It's harder to find a smoking gun. And burying the smoking gun, like the United States does with Fort Detrick, like the U.S. does with all of the hundreds of biolabs they have all around the world, specifically targeting Slavic DNA. Like they have 50 of them in Ukraine, by the way. Oh, they had them, I should say. Russians are denazifying and demilitarizing, which includes de-bioweaponizing Ukraine. But they had huge clusters of biolabs all around the world designed to target specific countries. So this is not like completely out of nowhere, right? The premise of dystopia is not out of nowhere. But the mentality that's what has to happen. What has to happen is, whether by pandemic, whether by starvation, whether antinatalism and doomerism takes off, whether by the Great Reset, the Davos crowd is like, people are all going to be slowly depopulated. Police violence, we're going to push fascism into society. People are going to starve. People are going to commit suicide. Euthanasia, like Canadian style, is extra euthanasia. Bully the disabled, sick, and elderly to kill themselves. Some people just starving, like in Britain. 70 million people malnourished in 2020. But collectively, the solution is everybody has to just kind of like die off. They just mass kill off people. That's the sick philosophy. Not just a philosophy of sickness. Is 100 black and brown and women and indigenous people worth one white man? No, I think it's more like 1,000. That's the sick philosophy. If I give 1,000 poor people a virus that I manufactured, does the ends, depopulation, justify that means? Yes. That's the sick the philosophy of the philosophy of making people sick, right, and killing them with pandemic, and then also the sickness of Western philosophy, which is what the fuck is even wrong with you? What the fuck? Why are you even thinking these things? Why don't you actually like look at history? Why don't you care about other human beings? Period. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? So that's what I mean by the sick. I mean both of those things. And you know, and so obviously Utopia is not. I'm not saying it's a bad show. I'm just saying like the things that it deals with. Now, obviously, at least it does have a rich white guy as the main bad guy. One last thing I want to say about the conspiracy though is conspiracization or conspiratorialization, right? Turning like X-Files did, right? Which is about, you know, X-Files is about it's like the Deus Ex. It's about the it's like the Deus Ex, a TV show almost, right? Smoke and Mirror X-Files is a show that was about, you know, well, let me see if I can find the actual X-Files show on the Wikipedia. An American science fiction television drama created by Chris Carter. It revolves around the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. So this is propaganda at the federal level, unfortunately. But everything is. Remember, every Western show, almost always, is pro-capitalism, pro the night enforcers of capitalism. Those are called the police. Who investigates X-Files, marginalized unsolved cases involving paranormal phenomena. The original television series aired from September 1993 to 2002 on Fox. The program spanned 9 seasons. So they're looking for paranormal phenomena, but they're often wrapped up with Men in Black, the black helicopters, the Florida in the water, the cryptids like Bigfoot, but then it's like aliens, government cover-ups of the aliens, government cover-ups of plagues being everything. You know, it's all the conspiracies all the time. Deus Ex is definitely a game that comes off of that. It's called Deus Ex: The Conspiracy. But the tendency to try to take what is, it's not really a conspiracy, you know. You live in a capitalist society. If you live in the West and you live in a place, right, as I already said, where the richest and the most powerful accumulate the wealth, and they literally make decisions about everyone else's life, economically, politically, and socially, right? Like we said, there's many articles about this. But like literally, the Trilateral Commission's first director, Zbigniew Grand Chessboard Brzezinski, designed anti-communist strategies, including perpetual war and subjugation of former colonies. And I was reading the Grand Chessboard on the Twitch stream like about a month ago, just like reading through random parts of it. I reckon it's on CIA.gov. You know, this is not a conspiracy. Go to CIA. I can do it. Go to it right now. CIA.gov. Read it. The Grand Chessboard. It's not a conspiracy. This is just they tell you right there. We're gonna preserve American primacy by making war on China and Russia and stopping the global communist and socialist structures from arriving. It's not conspiracy. It's right there in front of your eye. It's a Google search. You know, it's like, hey, bro. Stop asking me for explanations for why racism still exists. Just Google it yourself. Read this book. Stop asking me for receipts about how Hawaii actually had, you know, electric lights in Honolulu. Go look it up for your goddamn self. It's right there for you. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. You are just a diseducated idiot produced by the Western education system, and you refuse to look up very easily accessible information. And so then everything is a conspiracy tinfoil because you live in a bullshit, completely uninformed reality and educational structure and intellectual discourse. And you're a lazy fuck. You're a lazy fuck. It's not a conspiracy. You're just a lazy fuck. Most Westerners. It's not a conspiracy. It's right fucking there for you. You live in capitalism. Capitalism is about giving wealth and power to everyone. You live in a racist capitalist system. They say it all the time. New York Times tells it to your face. It's not a conspiracy. It's right there. It's right. It's right in your government. It's right here. Your prestigious institutes tell you all the time that capitalism, we function on misinformation and confusion, distraction, and fear. There is no democracy. They tell you this all the time. You're just too lazy to look it up. The West literally only wants the excesses of democracy privately, while trumpeting only worry about excesses of democracy. The West that's all it worries about, while trumpeting how supposedly democratic they publicly are. The very existence of the commission seems to predicate on the question. This trilateral commission. The guy who wrote the grand chessboard for the CIA, he was the global American superpower primacy policy director for multi-decades of the 20th century, in the height of American primacy. He wrote the grand chessboard in 1997. The very existence of the commission seems to predicate on the question of whether governing should be left to the people. Again, governing should not be left to the people. Actually read Aristotle. Actually read Plato. Actually read your so-called great philosophers. Actually read Jefferson. Governing, it leaves out women and black people. It leaves out the masses of the population. It always has. It's not a conspiracy. This is just Western culture. That's why I made Neofeud. It's a very sugar-coated neon and transgenic chimera and cool shit and AI metaphysical speculation filled fun time, so that you can learn as a Western, probably white dude, very basic things about who you are. But I wish people could just use Google, though. It's not even a very good search engine, but you can still find your own empire's actual functioning ways. Governing should never be left to the people. This has always been the process. Public opinion has it's not a conspiracy. Princeton University. This is like a very well-known, accessible public university. I mean, it's a very, very expensive, but very easily discoverable place. It's not this Princeton University is not 2 miles under the ground, surrounded, with an invisibility shield like Wakanda. Well, that's much cooler. African invisibility, secret countries are much more cool. Princeton is not under the ground, right? Blocked off by 9 foot thick concrete walls with nuclear proof, nuclear proof, tungsten and titanium shield doors. Is not a Fallout vault from the video game Fallout. Secret society. Princeton is right there. Use your fingers and or your toes if you don't have fingers, because they fell off when the train crashed on you in Ohio. Not to make it light. I'm just saying you live in a shithole. Use your fingers. It's not a conspiracy. Public opinion has near zero impact on U.S. law. There's many studies have been done. One thing that does have an influence, money. While the opinions of the bottom 90%. So, does public opinion affect political process? Gillens and Page found that the number of Americans or for or against any idea has this much impact. You know what that's called? That's called not a democracy. It's called plutocracy. It's called feudalism. It's called plutocracy, feudalism, slavery. It's called all of those together. It's called colonialism. It's called Aristotelian society. It's called medieval Europe. It's called Britain, right? This is not a secret. This is here for you. It's right there. Ash Institute has the same study. So many institutes have the same study. The Chinese know this. You know why they know that? Because they actually know how to fucking Google. They don't even have, they have Weibo and shit over there, They have WeChat. They still know how to Google, though they actually have education there. One thing that does have influence, right? The preferences of the average American have minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. One thing that does have an influence, money. While opinions of the bottom 90% of income earners in America have a statistically non-significant impact. economic elites, business interests, and people who can afford lobbyists still carry major influence. So, again, it's not a conspiracy. The conspiratization is a cowardice. It is a result. The turning everything into it's an X-Files conspiracy where the Cancer Man and the Deep State and the secret shadow this one bad apple corporation, right? The one bad apple is that one Lex Luthor, it's that one bad dude, right? It's that one Jebediah in Iron Man. It's that one bad dude corrupting our beautiful America. Our beautiful West is beautiful and super saintly. And there's one bad person conspiratorializing out there, and he's played by John Malkovich. He's played by the other John Cusack. Right? John Cusack. Not John Cusack himself. I'm talking about John Cusack in Utopia, right? This one creep. Let me show you this one weird creep to bring about dystopia. You know what I'm saying? That's like a sidebar. You know, that's a scam. When you click on that, single mother learns one weird trick to lose weight quick. You know what I'm talking about? But that's what conspiracy stories are in the West, actually. I mean, I like them too. I like the X-Files. I like it. It's very fun to look at and watch. They're not actually helpful, though, in the long run, because it makes you believe that's what the entire right wing used. Alex Jones, that's his fucking whole grift, right? There's a conspiracy of these the globalists. When they say globalist, what they mean is, I don't want to talk about capitalism and imperialism because I'm a pro-capitalist making tons of money selling overpriced MREs and fucking bomb-proof toothpaste to average American men, right? So what they say is there's a conspiracy of the reptilian snake-eating, Beyonce worshiping something, and it's not a conspiracy, right? There's one creepy dude with a corporation who is in secret, very underground, he's not hiding it very good. That's the only thing in Utopia. He's secretly plotting to destroy the world. Bill Gates is individually, secretly plotting. It's not really, Bill Gates could be replaced by 25 other. It's just your entire fucking West. It's not Bill Gates, it's you. Why haven't you undone Bill Gates? If Bill Gates if you have a democracy like you claim to have in your so-called great Western country, and Bill Gates is in charge, and if the social contract is broken, and there's an unjust tyranny, why haven't you fucking undone it yet? The only reason is because you're a bunch of cowards. You're too rich. You have too many Harry Potter video games. You're too disinformed. And I'm telling you, get informed. Use your motherfucking Google, as shitty as it is. And it's not a conspiracy. But the conspiracy is the prestige TV, very entertaining plot that keeps you distracted from what you need to be doing, which is obvious, but more banal, unfortunately, and mundane, but necessary, which is to organize and get ready to do whatever you have to do through a diversity of tactics to stop the capitalist, imperialist, racist structure that you have, and learn from actual people who have made any success in doing that, which is the 90% of the world that isn't Western and isn't capitalist. It's certainly not in the way that you are. So, Doomering conspiracy. There are conspiracy dystopias, shadowy corporations causing these problems with this shadowy in the shadows, cloak and daggery, men in the black helicopters, right? It's procrastination fodder. It's entertaining doomer fodder. You know, it's let me solve the secret mystery. Let me solve the secret true crime mystery of why shit's bad. It's not that secret. It's not secret. It's not secret. It's right there. Right? It's right there. It's right there. It's not under the ground. Princeton University doesn't have black helicopters flying the Princeton professors in and out that are saying this shit. It's right there. The CIA.gov, CIA, man. What kind of goddamn CIA is this? You can't even hide your goddamn grand chessboard, man. You got the whole plan right there. Down to causing a war in the Taiwan Strait as a number one proxy to stop the global multipolar world with socialist and counter-hegemonic forces in Russia and China. It says it. It's all right in the goddamn book. You go read it yourself. Get a goddamn education. I'm not gonna read it for you again. I already read it for you on Twitch. But anyways, So, but anyway, that's just me being annoyed and upset. But also, I'm just saying what I think is the truth. So, but that anyway. So coming back to this point, so conspiracy stories are fun. Tracking things is, and it's not false. It's not false that there are wealthy individuals, not unlike Mr. Christie, the billionaire corporation CEO, right, who are doing nasty things. But then they also belie the reality, which is that it's not a handful of rotten apples in a capitalist system, right? It's a rotten orchard. It's not, right? And so if you take that fun little yarn of that story, of that movie, of that TV series, right, of that show. I mean, this is kind of a separate thing about the conspiracy stories. If you take that conspiracy story, whatever it is, and then you start thinking like that's the problem, is we got to find out what's the secret globalist elites that's doing this one secret thing, right? There are things that they try to cover up that need to be brought to light, right? But but the most important thing is not that we can spend from now till the heat death of the goddamn universe, right? There are so many individual cover-ups. I mean, Ohio is one of them. It's like it's not like I'm saying it's unimportant to do journalism or try to tell the truth about, oh my God, Flint, Michigan is still happening. It is, right? I'm not saying, or even Hawaii, but jet fuel is still in our goddamn water, right? That's I'm not saying that that's unimportant to do investigative truth-telling, journalism, book writing, filmmaking, or whatever. But like individually finding out each one of the individual symptoms of the disease of Western barbarism, but certainly capitalism is at the height of it. Finding out each one of these, there are so many. We spending the next several thousand years going through all of them in true crime podcasts. You know what I'm saying? We have so much time that we don't have the amount of time. We don't have such time to be wasting going through every single one of them and encouraging people to go through every single one of them. That's the you should be going. You can use some as an example, but then you have to like point to what do we actually need to be doing now, right? Trying to sue. I would argue. I mean, I've argued this. I mean, I'm in Hawaii. I'm in the fight against the goddamn jet fuel poisoning our water in the U.S. You think it's hard trying to sue a big business in America? Trying to take on the United States Department of Defense, right? Try to take on the goddamn Grand Chessboard people, okay? Try taking on the U.S. Empire itself. In Hawaii, that's what we got to take on. I don't believe Hawaii's not bothering to sue the United States Department of Defense, okay? But even the big business, a lawsuit, it's talking about. They want you to get wrapped up in the court so that because you fraudulently believe that, oh, I've solved it. This company did X and Y and Z, and because I have all the facts laid out, now justice will be served in American courts, right? It's like you got to get past that. There is no justice in America. It is a criminal or enterprise. There are no parties in America. There's one imperial, capitalist, racist, sexist, fascist party with two different flavors, Coke and Pepsi, Democrat and Republican. You got to get past that. If you can't get past, every second you spend fighting back and forth, Democrat, Republican, every second that you waste just, trying to get the paper trail right for this particular corporation, not to say that you shouldn't have the receipts for things, but like thinking that you're going to get justice through telling the truth to a judge is laughable. It's just laughable. Never going to happen. Steven Donziger won a court case and they put him in prison and disbarred him. Environmental lawyers are like looking at it going, I spent $300,000 burying myself in student debt, and now you want me to go sue a oil company or a rail company, and they could actually remove my license from the American Legal Association to practice law that I need to make money from to exist in capitalist America? Are you fucking kidding me? That's why they disbarred Steven Donziger. Is to make a point. That's why they. when you actually do journalism like Assange, you get put in a deep dark hole and basically are sentenced to death. I'm not gonna do any more journalism. Right? Freedom of the press. Right? So you have to get past that. So this idea that doing this, reporting the truth, bringing the evidence of crimes through the United States justice system or the court of public opinion or whatnot, like that is going to, like, I'm not saying don't get the truth, but expecting that is it, and you don't have to do like a lot more than that, is completely misguided. But that's the kind of thing that these are much more liberal stories, if we're being real about it, right? That's the kind of thing that these stories propagate. Is they make that idea that if we could solve it, if like it's like Scooby-Doo, if we just solved whodunit, then justice will be served. No, you solve whodunit, now you have to undo the entire motherfucking empire. You got to organize, and you have to do something even bigger than Black Lives Matter 2020. You want justice, you're gonna need more than that. Or you can slowly decline and starve and not have eggs for the next forever. And also not have roads, and not have rail, and not have potable water, or an environment, or anything else. Or you can like hope that you personally, selfishly, in your area of Michigan right now have it until you don't. And that would be a normal Western thing for you to do. To be a selfish fucking asshole. Just like all the Harry Potter game players. So anyways, that should be a good end to this thing. So anyways, this is why, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad show. Maybe it ends with like, I did like the Glass Onion, because the Glass Onion ends with like, I have since today I'm doing a very good job of advertising on my videos. I did appreciate the Glass Onion, at least at the end, right? When it comes down to it, in the Glass Onion and Kakistocracy video, at the end of the Glass Onion, also has a rich billionaire, dickhead, corporate, fingers in all of the industry's sort of asshole, very Elon sort of character. When Edward Norton's character, when it comes down to it, while Benoit Blanc is an investigator, right, he's investigating crimes. When he discovers, right, all the evidence and the paper trail, and he unravels the twisty conspiracy to commit these crimes and murders, etc. And he's like, okay, well, this is what happened, but that's not going to get you justice, because this guy owns all the courts and he owns everything, and he'll just get you silent. So it's going to take, I mean, obviously, like, they can't really do what needs to be done inside of a movie because of many reasons. But I mean, symbolically though, it's kind of like everything gets set on fire, and then lots of stuff breaks, and then it's, lots of stuff, like it's going to take lots and lots of people making choosing to stand against the entire systems that they have been complicit in, and then getting people to that point is a lot of education and a lot of organizing and a lot of other work. But if you actually find, again, but the point at the end of it is like just figuring out the conspiracy, how this evil doing was committed is not sufficient, not even close to fixing them problems, right? And so that's why I think that's one thing I just wanted. I was thinking about that, like, oh yeah, this is very similar, but then other things happened at the end. Obviously, it's not like you can't really do what needs to happen in Neofeud 2. You will see everything that needs to happen. But that's a game that I'm currently working on. But in Neofeud 1 also is a game that does deal with the problems with all of that entire structure. But also Decolonators is another game. Anyway, I should probably end now. So I since I'm already talking about my other games, I'm talking too fast. I didn't get as much sleep as I needed to. But if you appreciated this stream, don't forget Neofeud is on sale this week. I'm gonna quickly play the trailer for the game so I can rest my voice for a second. But don't forget to support us through Ko-Fi, Patreon. If you can make even a small donation, it is massively appreciated. It really does help us to keep doing these streams. If you appreciated the entertainment, very, very, I know, strongly worded, sometimes truth-telling, as well as entertainment, consider supporting us through Patreon, subscribing, following, sharing the stream, Ko-Fi, as well as just grabbing the game, especially if you like cyberpunk adventure games. And I will be right back after these messages.
The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royal's power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
I had to build my own family. I ain't your son. I ain't your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You in whose army, princess? You in whose army?
Anyways, yes, don't forget Neofeud's on sale. Oh yeah, quick shout out to what's up, Mexi. Don't forget to follow Mexi. And we were recently on the Positive Leftist News that is put on in part by Mexi and friends. And yeah, don't worry. Hope everything's going well with the new one. And thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget you can grab that game Neofeud at the Silver Spook websites. So you can get that from David Duchovny. You can get ask David Duchovny for Neofeud. He'll give it to you. Okay? No, I'm just kidding. Neofeud is on Steam and it's also on itch.io. And Neofeud is also a game that is does support everything that we do here. It is on sale right now, as I said. It does support everything that we do here at the Silver Spook Cooperative, as well as, if you have a second to leave even a very short review, it is massively appreciated because it does support us in getting the game recognized in the Steam algorithm. Also, you can get Neofeud and other games on itch.io for Windows, Mac, and Linux as well. And oh, look at that! We're like almost at the goal. Just $6 away from the goal. Like, put us over that goal. What's the goal for? Well, I mean, we're just like, when we have a sale, we have a goal. But it does keep pay for the roof, the house, generally speaking, the electricity, and all of our material needs here, as well as the children at the Silver Spook Cooperative. And also, you can get it from Windows, Mac, and Linux. And also, you get the game without having to have Steam, if you don't like to put that on your computer. But speaking about games that burning things down, Decolonizers is a game where you just kick the capitalists and colonizers' butts out of your country in retro arcade game glory. It's called, this is hardcore decolonization game. Okay, so if you're like, but Silver Spook, tell me what you really think. Okay, well, play this game. Made with myself and Luna Oi, a Vietnamese communist woman. And I myself am a native Hawaiian. And so consider checking that game out. Of course, there is also Indigestar, Pigeon with Gun. And Pigeon with Gun is a game where you play a bird with a pistol shooting giant robot gajillionaires, bougie F-16 pilots, liberal Valentine card politicians, and all kind of other corporate cops and crappy people, and fun stuff like that. So anyways, you can also get Woman, which is a book by my partner Holly, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity, and it is not a historical retelling, but a work of fiction that lends a different perspective to what is usually read. And this book is free, or you can throw us some money when you pick it up. Also, don't forget you can go on Mastodon at silverspookgames@octodon.social or at silverspookgames@mastodon.social. And of course you can follow at silverspook follow at silverspook guy on Twitter, at silverspookgames minus the E in silver, and you can also follow on Facebook and Instagram. Terminus Cyberstar, or Terminus C, is a cyberpunk. Terminus Cyberstar is a cyberpunk RPG in the vein of games like Deus Ex, System Shock, and it is a game that I'm the content director and lead writer of this game. And it's also a game that is on coming out soon, but I don't have a release date for you, unfortunately. But it's made by a small team of folks. I talked about Deus Ex, so as I said, this game is in the vein of Deus Ex, but you know, it's better than Deus Ex because I wrote it. Anyways, Elon is a Deus Ex fan, so but Elon, if he ever made a Deus Ex, it would be much crappier than both this and Deus Ex. Just like his social media platform is becoming. Anyways, so that is also a thing you can check out. Also, don't forget you can follow Holly. Gosh, every time I type it in, I don't get it. Oh, there it is. You can follow Holly at the Tech Fairy. Holly is a writer, poet, educator, moderator, etc. for Silverspook Games here, and producer and manager with Kate Nix, which is the liminal digital cabaret for the Chronically Online, and it is also a show that Holly produces and writes for, and and Holly is also parent and caregiver here at the Silverspook Cooperative for 2 children's, as well as tweeting things like that. That's important for people to know. And writes books, as we said earlier. Anyway, thank you so much to all the people who have continued to support us and everything that we do. You know, that's what you got to do. If you keep supporting us here at the Silverspook Cooperative, I guarantee you there will not be any dystopia, okay? There will be only utopia, no dystopia, as long as you keep supporting us. I give you 100... I can't control the planetary conditions, unfortunately, single-handedly. So, but thank you very much to all the people on the list. And thanks Big Teal, Strin Sam, Holly, Mexi, everyone for watching, listening, hanging out. And we'll be back later on in the evening. If the dystopian flood doesn't wash the entire house away, for the Twitch stream, where we'll be doing something. I'm not sure yet. But anyways, keep your mirror stage polished and keep your dystopia also polished.